Aloha and welcome to the 24th meeting of the Community Representation Initiative for Red Hill. I'm your reluctant chair, Marty Townsend, and this will be my last CRI meeting as I will be cycling off. We'll start first, I guess, with the Oli per usual, and then go through the agenda. Okay. Oli kaha. Ola I kaha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I Hawaii, Hawaii. Ola I kaha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I Hawaii, Hawaii. Ola I kaha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I Hawaii, Hawaii. And we do this only just to help us center our energy and our focus on the thing that is most important to all of us, our water. And so thank you very much. And like I said, welcome. We'll go around the room and make introductions. We have a few substitutes. I'll start. My name is Marty Townsend. I'm the chair for the CRI, and I am an at-large member.
Hello, Mai Kako. My name is Mai Hall, and I am the Native Hawaiian Interest member and also an effective family member.
Yes, my name is Bill South. I believe, the representative for Sierra Club of Hawaii.
Aloha, I'm Melody Atuha, and I'm the representative for the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party. Aloha.
Aloha, Tara Rojas. I'm a Kia'i, and I'm a substitute for Tita Helani.
Aloha, Susan Gorman-Chang. I am the substitute for Tara Sutton.
Aloha, my name is Mia Lisa Otis, and I'm representing the community of Oahu.
And then we can go to those members who are on Zoom. Michelle?
Aloha, I'm Michelle. I am from Catalina Beach Books.
Okay, Michelle, we have a little bit of hard time hearing you. Maybe in the future, just try to speak loud. Mandy?
Aloha, Mandy Find, Impacted Family, representing impacted families. For the last time in my official capacity on the CRI, I'll be cycling out as well. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And is there anyone else online from the CRI? All right. Let's see. So now I have the great honor to welcome our newly elected members to the CRI. So for those of you that have been following along, this is old news, but if you're new to our episodic series, soap drama, in October of 2023, when we were first formed, we set up bylaws and established a 2-year term for all members on the CRI. And so we are here at 2025 at the 2-year mark. And so we will be, half of us are cycling off of the CRI, and we have several new members who are coming in. So, and some of them are here today, and some of them are online. And please help me in welcoming them. If you want to stand to be acknowledged, or, I don't know, raise your hand online, whatever. Thank you very much for being here. So we have Susan Gorman-Chang, Jamie Simnick, Robert Huber, Mariko Jackson, Emiloa Borland, and Chris Anton. Thank you very much. And I'll just make some, and now we can go to announcements. The first tentative announcements I'd like to make, we are aiming for our next CRI meeting just amongst CRI members on October 24th. And we are hoping for a meeting with the Navy on November 14th. So just pencil those in, and we'll confirm those by email when they get scheduled. In addition, want to make sure that everyone knows that we have two important hearings next week. One is the Department of Health's Fuel Tank Advisory Committee, FTAC. You guys are all familiar with these. Usually a dark lit room, can't really hear very well, and you don't get to ask any questions directly. You know that meeting. The agenda to that meeting is linked in our agenda. It's on October 1st at the state capitol. And I failed to write down the time in my notes, but the agenda has the time. I think it's in the afternoon. And then the other important meeting that we hope all people can tune into or attend in person is the House of Representatives, the Hawaii House of Representatives, has a special committee on Red Hill chaired by Representative Linda Ichiyama. And it is holding a special meeting on Thursday, October 2nd at 10 a.m. They'll be in conference room 325 at the Hawaii State Capitol, and they'll also be available on Zoom. And you can find the links to that at the Capitol, the capital.hawaii.gov website. You just click on hearings, and it's the only one there. And it'll be a really interesting hearing because it is the Director of the Department of Health Environmental Services Section, Kathy Ho, and then two EPA staffers, Amy Miller, whom people might be familiar with here. She has attended many CRI meetings and helped to form the CRI. She is basically a head honcho around enforcement for Region 9 and the EPA. And then Claire Trombone? I'm not exactly... Trombador, thank you very much. So they have a lot of interesting information around the ways in which the EPA had directed the Navy to collect samples, and then we're going to hear about how the Navy did other things other than what the EPA directed them to do. So I think it's an important hearing to go to. Okay, any other announcements that I may have forgotten that we need to make sure we tell people? Right on. Okay, let's dive into it then. Okay, so for our first business substantive issues, we're going to discuss a bunch of the litigation that's going on. I'm sure you all have seen the news that there's been, there was the large lawsuit filed by people who were living and working on the Navy water lines in federal court. And so we will hear from a representative from the Just Well Law outfit who is helping to litigate that case. I also think it's important for us to discuss the indictment of the two civilians, low-level contractors who were indicted in federal court for lying about how much fuel was released initially in May of 2021. And then we also wanted to discuss lawsuits filed by our friends, Meredith Wilson, which goes into detail about how samples and evidence was withheld early on in the catastrophe. And then, Melody, if you want to, you can give an update about the Waiʻola Alliance. So is Kristen Bear or someone from the Just Well Law program on Zoom that can give us an update?
I don't think she's here yet.
Okay.
Circle back to that.
Yeah, we'll circle back to that one then. Shall we start with the indictment of the contractors? Have you, you can see a link in the agenda to a news article about the indictment of Nelson Wu and what's John's last name? I forgot. Floyd. John Floyd. And these both of these individuals worked for Shannon Bentz, who was the fuel director for the Red Hill fuel facility. And you will recall when Shannon was here, and hopefully she'll be able to come back soon to give us more detail and input. Part of the reason why she became a whistleblower was to be able to highlight the inconsistencies and the misreporting and the misdirection that happened in the early days after the leak and the people started getting poisoned. And so these two gentlemen have been indicted, and there's going to be going to trial. Does anyone have any comments or opinions, input, thoughts?
Do we have a date yet?
Not
for
that I
the
know
court
of, no.
case? No, okay.
I found it interesting that it was just 2 civilians that were indicted so far. I'm concerned that if this is the full extent of the, criminal activity, the criminal investigation and enforcement that is taken by government around the Red Hill catastrophe, I think it's a miscarriage of justice because I don't know. From what we know, right, and we have seen all of the attention to higher ups, a lot of attention and the way in which they are, engaged at every level and in control of everything. I find it hard to believe that these 2 low-level civilians were the only ones involved in trying to cover up how much fuel actually was released, right? They initially said it was a few thousand gallons, and then it turned out to be 20,000 gallons that was released. And so it's a huge disparity. So that's concerning.
Yeah, I think the terminology is scapegoats.
Scapegoats. Can you say more about in case people don't know what a scapegoat is?
Well, scapegoat is, if you need to pin blame on somebody or a select few to take the fall for whatever malfeasance you might have done. You pick some low-level people. Rarely do the higher-level people in whatever organization you're dealing with voluntarily say, hey, I'm going to fall on the sword. And I think there's enough implied in this situation that there are some other people that supervised these contractors. I mean, in most of these projects, you have to have Navy supervision. And who supervised and who didn't control the situation like they should have. So, that's, again, my opinion. And so, hopefully we'll find out, if it's just limited to these 2 people, Nelson Wu and John Floyd.
John Floyd.
Mm-hmm. Or, it has some Navy elements in this problem. So that's my opinion.
Melody?
Yeah, I think what's troubling is the prior fuel director, and that was Gordy Meyer. And Gordy Meyer was the one that Lieutenant Commander Shannon Banks took over his position. And apparently, when John Floyd had first came out with the report of, I believe, at 1,600 gallons, he actually reported that to Gordy Meyer. And if you recall, Gordy Meyer was promoted. So he was promoted, and as we know, Lieutenant Commander Banks she was passed of having a promotion 3 times. Yeah. So Gordy Meyer should be one who approved of the 1,600 gallons that was reported to the Department of Health, in which time the Department of Health relied on that initial reporting. And Lieutenant Commander Banks, however, went ahead and had her own accounting of the fuel, and it was well over, of course, 1,600, and it settled at 20,000. But if you were to go through her log, it's well over 20,000 as well. It could go up to 100,000 gallons and even up to 200,000 gallons. So it depends on how much evidence is going to come out. But I think it's impactful that, yes, the higher ups above John Floyd and Wu, they're the only ones that have gotten indicted so far, wherein the other, such as Gordy Meyer, who is a prior fuel director, had approved, had knowledge, and has been promoted. So yes, they should also be held accountable as well.
Yeah. Actually, so Mandy has her hand up online, and then we can go to Susan after. Mandy, are you available?
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. For me, obviously, everyone knows I'm still serving on active duty on the CRI in my civilian capacity. But from being a prior commander, there's absolutely the sole responsibility falls on the commander. So these two civilians submitted up a report to a commanding officer, and that commanding officer is responsible for any information that would have went to any to the Department of Health or anyone else. So regardless of who fed that information, is your responsibility as a commander to trust but verify. So the sole ownership should fall on the green suiters, the commanding officers that were in charge. We know that every commanding officer who was ever quote unquote held accountable was given a letter of censure or a letter of a reprimand from the Secretary of the Navy after every single one of them retired. That is, unfortunately, folks, what military accountability looks like this day and age. And don't take my word for it. You can look at, the 60 Minutes coverage from the Department of the Navy itself on their definition of what military accountability look like. The other thing is, to Melody's point, Shannon was not only passed over for promotion. When she got there, she sounded the alarms and she was fired. And Gordy Meyer and everyone else within her chain of command knew that Shannon was blowing the whistle. They knew that she was trying to hold folks accountable. Shannon single-handedly tried to prevent this catastrophe from happening, and she was the only one that was willing to do that and put her life and career on the line to do so. And she has been blocked by every level of command. She has been blocked by the Department of Justice in testifying in this court case, where these two gentlemen have been indicted, and also in our federal lawsuit as well. She was blocked from, and everyone knows how much information Shannon has, and she is slowly beginning to be able to tell that story. And I just want to reiterate how appreciative we are, especially as impacted families, for how much risk she has taken to try to expose this stuff. But to everyone's point, these folks, let's not let them off the hook. They are absolutely responsible for lying. They are all part of the problem, and God rest their soul one day when they meet their maker, because they absolutely had a piece in my children and thousands of other children and innocent civilians being poisoned. But the accountability does not stop there. Every commander in charge who was part of the cover-up has been able to retire with their career intact and has never been held responsible. And the only person that's still serving on active duty that was part of that chain of command is Admiral Sam Paparo, who now serves as the Indo-PACOM commander and has never been held responsible for his role for thousands of people being poisoned on his watch, period.
Yeah, I think we all owe Shannon a huge gratitude.
Yes.
She really put herself out there, put her whole career on the line, and she hasn't stopped. She hasn't given up. She just keeps talking about it as much as they don't want her to. And that's, because of her, we know a lot more about how the contractor system works, right? And how they make money off of Red Hill and all military installations, regardless of, whether it's being well maintained or not. And, in the case of Red Hill, regardless of whether it was shut down or kept operating, the contractors were able to make money. And Shannon was able to collect all of that data and organize it in a way that people could understand it and could show the inconsistencies. Yeah, she's a gem, and we should be very grateful for her. Yeah, Susan,
Did
go
you have a
ahead.
comment? Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have a.
Right, it's up here.
Yep.
There's an open. Cool. Okay. Hello?
Yeah.
I think
You
it's
good?
Okay, just to correct a few things. They weren't contractors, they were federal civil servants.
Right.
And they weren't low level, they were both up in the GS 14, 15 level, getting plenty of money. And in my opinion, they are not scapegoats. They're just the low-hanging fruit. In the federal government now, unless it starts changing, not only do you have active duty above these people, but you also have a civilian counterpart that is just as responsible as the Navy commander is for the military side of the house. So there's a pecking order. We just got the middle end of it.
Thank you. So what does it look like if the Navy decides to criminally go after, does that go to military court, and how does that all play out?
I'm not sure.
Because it wouldn't be in civilian court, correct?
I think right now they are. They got it. There
Oh,
was
no,
a grant.
these employees are, but they're
civilian
not
employees.
active military. I mean,
Right.
if it went up to someone who's in the military, would it go to military court is my question.
Yeah, I guess it depends if it's the military trying to enforce on them as opposed to the civilian, whether it's the state, like say the Department of Health wanted to enforce on them, or if it was the Department of Justice, like regular federal prosecutors. It probably matters who's doing the enforcing about which court they would end up in.
Thank you.
All right, any other conversations about this? Okay, just checking in, is anyone from Just Well?
Yeah,
Law
Christina's
or-
on.
Yay, right on. So, Christina Bear, you want to introduce yourself and give us an update about the lawsuit?
Sure. I'm Christina Bear. I'm privileged to represent many of the impacted families who are still seeking justice. So here's what I want you to know about what happened. We filed this case in January of 2022, so right after the spill. First, we had to file administrative claims, and then the minute we could, we filed the actual lawsuit. That case went to trial in record time. It went to trial in May of 2024. But the judge, for a variety of reasons that we don't really understand, waited until May of 2025 to issue her final judgment. And here's what you need to know about that final judgment. She found that the Navy was liable for releasing fuel. This is not surprising to anyone listening. But importantly, she found that the fuel reached the entire waterline. So the Navy was claiming in that lawsuit that the fuel did not reach Ford Island, did not reach Iroquois Point. Judge found no, it reached the entire island. Super important. Next, the government argued that there was not enough fuel to make anyone sick, and therefore the people who were sick were psychosomatic. Judge found no, people on the waterline were in fact sick in November and December of 2021. Super important again. Then the judge issued an order on damages, and she found that people who had acute injuries but no prior conditions were entitled to $76,000 in damages. Now, we didn't like that. No one on this call really likes that, but that's the number that she found. It was $76,000 for acute injuries without prior conditions. And then people who had prior conditions, she divided by half. Because under Hawaii law, if you have a prior condition and you can't apportion it, then the law says that the damages need to be apportioned by half. There are some important things that did not happen in that case. We did not have an active service member in that case because we filed the active service members in a separate lawsuit. That case is called the Whaley case, and that case is ongoing. We have reason to believe that the government is going to assert the Ferris Doctrine and claim that none of those people have a right to bring claims against the United States. We are on the one hand, disappointed in the United States government for waiting 4 years to assert that argument. They could have asserted it a long time ago. But on the other hand, we're ready for it because we believe that the case law is really clear that if you are not in the line of duty, then you have the right to bring a claim against the United States for negligence. So that means that if you are Mandy Fine and you're naked in your shower and you are, bathing your 1-year-old, you are not in the line of duty and you have the right to bring a claim against the United States for poisoning your family. So that's going to be an active issue that's going up. And then in the meantime, we're going to be moving forward to enforce the court order until the government, pays people in accordance with the order. So that's what we're in the midst of right now. What did we learn in the last couple of weeks? One, You all talked about the scapegoats and the fact that they are now bringing criminal charges. Bear in mind that this is the same Department of Justice that is bringing criminal charges that also argued in court that there wasn't enough fuel in the water to make anyone sick. The absurdity of their legal positions in this case has known no bounds. It continues to be outrageous. We also learned that the federal government spoliated or withheld evidence from us. There was fuel that remained in the water line after, you remember, there was the line that was hit by the cart exploded. Well, that line retained fuel, and the government did not tell us, and they did not give us a chance to test that fuel. That is also outrageous. So we believe that they spoliated evidence, they withheld evidence. In the same way that, remember when they tested everyone's houses, they took test results, they took water samples, but then they tested it for the wrong thing. They didn't test for fuel. They then basically discarded all of those samples and spoliated evidence there too. So they took the position in court that we didn't have the evidence to prove that people were sick when they themselves prevented us from obtaining that evidence in the first place. So that's all very frustrating, but at the same time, the government failed, and the judge saw through all of that and found in favor of our clients, and we're tremendously proud of that. So that's where we are. I'd love to take a couple questions because I know that people still have questions about what's going on.
Yeah, sure. Questions from CRI members in person?
Yeah, I have a question. So regarding Tara Rojas, so like the accountability, so if this is ongoing and these other lawsuits can be, are still ongoing and can be brought forward, how does it work? I don't know if Kathleen or yourself, for having those in the Navy responsible, to hold them accountable.
So this is a
And
great,
especially, sorry, and then also regarding what Mandy had said, they know everybody who was in charge, they all retired, with their benefits. Can it also be retroactive?
so it's a great question. I think the 60 Minutes piece was really poignant on that part, on that exact point. What happened to accountability? And, the blonde lady said for the Navy, well, they had all retired, and now we see that they're bringing claims only against the civilians. That is outrageous in terms of the individual accountability. But here's what I want you to know from my own standpoint. I believe that this case, the broader case itself, brought accountability. Because when we first arrived there, and you all were there, so you saw this, it was like watching a train wreck. They were trying to basically claim that nobody was getting sick at all, that there was no harm, no foul, and there wasn't enough fuel to make anyone sick, and they were trying to push it all under the rug. And because of you, I see Lacey on here, and Mandy, and Meredith, and Jamie, and Tara, and of course, the community leaders like Wayne and others, because of you were able to band together and bring this big case and file it in court and get the government to admit that it was liable. And that in itself brings accountability. The truth and the transparency and showing that the fuel got to the entire water line and that people were sick and making that public record brings accountability. And, one of the things I've thought a lot about was when I came to this very meeting and I asked the question of the Navy, was there enough fuel in the water in November 2021 to make people sick? And you will remember that the Navy didn't answer the question, but the EPA did. And the EPA said yes. And then the government accused me of violating my ethical obligations by asking a question at this meeting. And we went back and forth, and they were basically trying to claim all sorts of stuff. And I filed a declaration in the court, and I said, okay, all right, fine, I won't ask another question. But I attached the transcript of this CRI meeting to the docket in federal court because I wanted it to be known for posterity forevermore that the EPA itself admitted what happened here. So I think a lot of accountability is about truth. And what we are all in the exercise of doing, all of us, every single person on this meeting, is bringing truth and revealing what really happened here. And I'm so proud of the CRI for continuing to do that. And come hell or high water, y'all have been shut down. People have not, the Navy has not come. The Navy's tried to kick people off. I mean, you have faced so much opposition, and yet you continue day in and day out to speak truth, to demand the truth, to reveal what's happening there. There is absolutely still fuel in that water. And I'm just really proud and inspired by this group.
Thank you. We really appreciate your lawsuit also. Like it was an amazing undertaking. Thank you very much for standing up for people. Any other questions from either in the room or online?
I have a couple of comments because this has been asked and I see it on the question answers as well. So to be clear, some folks are upset about the payouts. I'll just be honest, our family personally was one of the lead plaintiffs. For us, it was, the payouts, in my opinion, are a slap in the face for how much our family has been through. In fact, it costs more money for me to sit in the trial for 2 weeks than my son's payout, right? But I want to be clear that Judge Kobayashi, now that things are over with my family and I'm just on the active duty suit, I don't really care, although Christina might tell me to shut up here in a few minutes. But Judge Kobayashi limited her scope. She really went out of her way to limit what it is that she would look at. And she will only, she only considered payouts from the November spill and to a very small amount of time. I want folks to make sure that we understand that. So what was really frustrating for my family is that we had lived on the island for an entire year prior to that spill. We had lived in Eva Beach, actually, off the Navy's drinking water system. And at the end of April, we moved into Ford Island. Our family was very healthy. We didn't have half of the issues that we did. And so we were there when the May spill happened, and everyone knows with Kat McClanahan and people like Meredith who are exposing, faulty testing and shoddy testing and what they did over the summer. We know that there was fuel in the summer. We know that we were slowly being poisoned over the summer. Many of the symptoms that folks developed from May into November are, just so everyone's clear, are considered pre-existing conditions, which is absolute bullshit that they didn't exist before.
We are on public television, Mandy.
Well, hopefully Alelo can bleep that out. But we know that is it's just such a deceptive thing that happened through the Navy. But Judge Kobayashi went out of her way to limit. So I just want everyone to understand that those payouts, while they are low, they do not consider what it is that happened to families prior to November. And I think that's extremely unfortunate. The last thing I want to say is, with Ferris Doctrine, just so everyone's clear of how absurd and ancient this piece of legislation is, and something that, I am willing to, everyone knows, we'll take it all the way through Supreme Court if we have to. And I sit on another board where we've done, things with military malpractice that have gone against Ferris. But so everyone's clear, just to put this in perspective, I lived in the same house as my civilian husband and my 2 kids. Mama bear, right, is bathing my child. I'm cooking the food with the contaminated water. I am washing the clothes with it, bringing in the same toxic air and drinking the same water under the same roof. And because I am active duty, I have forfeited all of my rights. That's what the military believes. So if you have a shoddy, if you have a medical malpractice claim as a civilian, you'd be able to go and sue whoever did that to you, right? Whoever gave you a shitty surgery. Sorry again, a terrible surgery. And if you live, even if I lived off base, like say I lived in Capilina Beach Homes, I have no rights to sue the government because it is a Navy water asset, a Navy asset that poisoned my family. And because I'm a service member, solely because I'm a service member, I I cannot sue the government because of fairness, living under the same roof as my family. So I just want to point out those two like just absolute absurd issues that we were facing with this case.
But you can, and we did.
Yeah.
And
Oh
we
yeah,
will.
you can, but it's a challenge.
I mean, I think that that's another, there are a lot of things in this case that I'm really proud of. And one is that we brought this case for the service members. We brought it separately. We did a huge splash. We made a lot of news in filing that case, and we're going to pursue it to its completion, because we need to think about how we're protecting our service members and how we're taking care of them when they're not in the line of duty. So we're ready to bring that case to carry on in that case, and we welcome the challenge. I know the Navy's watching. Bring it on. I can't wait till you file the the motion. Bring it on. Yeah.
And this is why we love you, Kristen. You are super hardcore. Okay, so we do have one question from online that I wanted to ask you. The question is, moving forward, what is your advice for families that are still struggling medically and are fighting for accountability? What can we do as a group to call for long-term care and continue to advocate for our best interests?
I've always seen this case as one piece of many. And I think that what the CRI has been doing is incredible. What the Sierra Club is doing is incredible. I think that there is a role for advocacy, and in particular for legislative advocacy. So I know Kat and Mandy and Jamie and many others, Tara with the registry, are focused on how we document the long-term health impact and also provide care for it. So I think that there's absolutely room for that to be addressed through other means like congressional action, which is what they did for the people at Camp Lejeune. One thing I can tell you is the comparison between this group and East Palestine, Ohio, is really stark. In East Palestine, Ohio, which is where that train derailment happened, they have no registry. They have no community like this. They have no CRI. They have they're just now getting some ongoing health studies. But because of the work that this group has done and the unity that you had from the very beginning, I believe that this is going to have this community is going to be better taken care of in the long term because how you've all come together. And if I can be part of that, I think I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to be advocating for these families till the day I die, I think. And I would love to be part of those efforts in any way that I can be.
Hi. Real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Christina. I'm Mai Hall, one of your plaintiff peoples. Hey, hello. So just wanted to also mahalo you for everything that you and other lawyers have done. And guys, to me, this is a win. Just want to remind everyone that a federal judge did find the Navy negligent and liable for the Red Hill 2001 spill, sorry. Singular, not plural, just that one November spill. So I just want to remind everybody who's watching and reading the notes, they are held liable and negligent. And I'm just going to hold on to that silver lining of hope that justice will be served one day. And that's what I want to take home for everyone here. Whether or not they'll be held responsible is the next step. So we'll just clap our hands.
Yeah, thank you. And just to be clear, they already are held responsible. Okay? Like they have to pay. They have to pay the Bellwether families. They have to pay all my other clients. They absolutely have to pay. And I believe that the justice system is entrusted with enforcing the safety rules. And in order to do that, people have to be brave enough to bring the claims. And because you were brave enough to bring the claims, the judge did issue an order requiring the government to pay. That changes the incentives. The law is about compensation for people who have been injured, but it's also about deterrence and changing the incentives. And that's what this case did, because until this case, there had been no successful environmental injury case against the United States that we know of, at least on American soil. Nothing like this has ever been accomplished before. So it is historic. It is absolutely a win. And I believe that that judge believed that she was finding in our favor and doing our clients a favor by narrowing it in a way that the government couldn't appeal. I think that was her motivation. I don't know that. I don't know her. I was just as disappointed in the numbers. But at the end of that trial, she looked at Mandy and the other plaintiffs and she said, I want to address the plaintiffs. This case was the best of our judicial system. And you came and you were heard, and we talked about the rule of law, and this is what it is all about. And even though, again, I didn't like a lot of her rulings, don't get me wrong. But I think that she believes that she was protecting you in her final ruling. And I'm gonna cling to that too.
So we know that there's still people are still having a hard time with their water, right? They're still seeing questionable things in it. The Navy has refused to test the water heaters, and they have been negligent and perhaps worse with the samples that were collected at the time. So people are still struggling with unclean water, and so I just wanted to highlight that we had an expert come to the CRI a few months ago. Her name was Elin Betanzo, and she is the president of Safe Water Engineering, and she has put out a flyer to help people who are living on the Navy water lines know what kinds of filters to buy to be able to install them in your house and try to minimize some of the exposure to pollutants. This flyer, it's 4 pages long. She's a very smart and detailed person, so it's a 4-page flyer, and we can email this to everyone who is on the CRI email list. And if you would like to join that, you can send an email to the redhillcri@gmail.com, and we will add you to the list, and we can share a link to this document. And you can also contact her directly if you have any questions. All right, any other questions or comments about litigation? Yeah, Tara, go ahead.
Well, it's probably not in the lawsuit, but now that you mentioned it about the water filters, is there anything ever going to be done about the water heaters in all of the homes?
I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. We have brought it up many, many times to the Navy, and they just, are refusing to hear it. Yeah, they basically said no. But also, I will note, they said no to a lot of things. Things like replacing the pipes, and then we look around and we see construction projects happening on the Joint Base that include water pipe replacements, and we're like, how interesting. So while they may never say, like, thank you very much for raising this concern, because you did, we are now changing this and protecting people's health, we probably won't get that kind of acknowledgement. But if we do continue to press, I think there might be other ways in which we can get them to actually act in people's best interests, even if they don't actually, pat us on the head for it. So,
Marty, do you remember when we made a big stink over air quality monitoring, and those folks told us that there was no need for it? There's no indication that we might need that, and then all of a sudden, air quality monitors popped up all over base before they started degassing. Anyone remember that?
Exactly.
I wanted to add really quick. People keep asking questions that are so important. I just want to remind everyone that this is a collective effort. Christina's mentioned a couple people's names, but a lot of folks have helped. I'm going to put it in here. If you don't know who your congressperson is, especially military folks, you can write the Hawaii congressional delegation, but you can also write in your hometown where you're registered to vote. And I'll put the link here. If you don't know who your congressperson is, it's really easy to access. Please write your congressperson about your concerns with the water still today and the different exposure pathways. Like, for example, the fact that the hot water heater in your home has still not been replaced, that when the Navy comes out and tests, they only test for cold water, which bypasses the hot water heater. Don't think that that's not intentional, right? When they come in and test your water, they run your water system for 20 to 30 minutes, as if anyone does that before they get up and brush their teeth in the morning, or, showers their child. That no one showers their kid with cold water. So the way that they are still doing testing is extremely deceitful, and folks need to understand that. So
Yeah.
we need to continue to talk about the fact that there are still exposure pathways that are not being investigated by both the Navy and the EPA. And so I would encourage everyone on this call, and to tell all your friends about it. The only way that anything is going to happen, when people say it takes an act of Congress, that is very true. And that's one thing that we've learned in this fight. Please write your Congress people. I'll send the link here. The other thing is, next week with Ichiyama's team, Congresswoman or Ichiyama, or State Representative
Yeah,
Ichiyama.
yeah, Representative Ichiyama, the House
Yes.
Special Committee.
We can't ask questions, but you can certainly, from now until then, flood her office with your questions like this. Is the EPA continuing to investigate other exposure pathways? My hot water heater hasn't been replaced. My pipes have not been replaced. The dishwasher in my home, the refrigerator and all its personal use plastics, all of those things she can ask in her hearing next week. So please flood her office from now until then with these kinds of questions.
Thank you, Mandy. All right, so I think we need to wrap up this section of it. I have one other thing to say, and then public testimony is supposed to begin at 6. So if you're online, you can use the question and answer feature, or to be able to get attention, and then we can spotlight you and turn on your mic if you want to ask a question, or you can just type it into the Q&A and we can read it off for you. And if you are in the audience and you would like to say a comment, we have a public mic here on the side, and you can just line up behind Melody and Bill, and we can get through your comments. Excuse me. So get your questions ready. Figure out what you're going to say. Melody, is there any update for the Wai'ola Alliance website litigation? Sorry.
Yes, there is a update on Wai'ola Alliance, and this one is, I guess, the flip side of the prior case, because this one is environmental versus personal injury. And unlike the other case, we have lots of violations. So it's under the Clean Water Act. We've also filed under the RCRA, which is Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. But this one has been stayed, and same judge, Senior District Court Judge Leslie Kobayashi, is going to hear this case, and she is allowing the Clean Water Act to go forward, and that one is scheduled for December. We did file, and it was heard, a motion for summary judgment, but before that, she also heard motion, or I guess a determination of standing. And so our group of 10 plaintiffs that comprises Wai'ola Alliance, the Alliance did get standing, as well as 4 members of the Alliance individually got standing, and the rest of us, without prejudice, we can also try to get standing at the time of trial, which will be held in December, the week before Christmas. And basically, the summary judgment was denied, unfortunately, and it was self-reported, actually, by the Navy, but somehow a judge did not grant our motion. And so our attorneys has to prove that there's either ongoing discharge or the likelihood of a reoccurrence, that there's a contaminant has and will continue to create a present, imminent, and substantial endangerment to the health and the environment through historic, existing, and impending contamination of the irreplaceable southern Oahu aquifer. So that's under the Clean Water Act, and we've got 543 violations, and that constitutes 543 days of violations of the Clean Water Act. And those who got standing individually, like one of our plaintiffs is Pete Doctor, and he lives 1 mile away from the facility, and his declaration indicated, his affidavit indicated that the water used in his house comes from the aquifer, and it is being impacted by the petroleum spill at Pu'uloa. And he described that he experienced trauma and fear for his family and the community because of the fuel releases at the facility and the contamination of the aquifer. and that caused him depression, and which included the Red Hill crisis and the unsatisfactory military response. And he observes Pu'uloa regularly, and such as when he goes hiking. And when he sees Pu'uloa, he is saddened and disgusted by the contamination caused by the Navy. Doctor enjoys Pu'uloa less because of the sight and smell of the pollution, and he would use and enjoy Pu'uloa more, such as kayaking, swimming, and fishing with his child, where it not have been for its contamination. And another plaintiff was Hanaloa. I know many of you know Hanaloa. And he has personal and ancestral ties to the Halawa Ahupua'a, in which is the primary site of the contamination caused by the facility. And for more than 30 years, Hanaloa has worked to restore the native ecosystem through various cultural and ceremonial practices in the Halawa Ahupua'a. So Hanaloa states that the Navy's discharge of pollutants from the facility has caused him to suffer non-economic injuries, including but not limited to cultural, religious, aesthetic, and recreational harms. Hanaloa is unable to engage in traditional and customary cultural practices in the Halawa Ahupua'a, and desecration of the affected lands and sacred waters have imposed burdens upon him and caused him to suffer sadness, grief, and depression. Hanaloa also fears developing cancer or other chronic illnesses because of exposure to contamination in the aquifer from the recent spills and or prior spills. So this is the reason why we have filed under the Clean Water Act as well as RCRA, but RCRA, as I mentioned, has been stayed. So our trial is going on in December. So we're not, we're not filing for, I guess, the remedy of money. It's more for cleanup and prevention from an environmental standpoint.
Thank you very much, Melody.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I just want to take a moment to thank Christina Bear for all of her hard work and representation and killer advocacy and for standing with these families to your last days. I appreciate it. The commitment is what it takes. So, way to go.
Well, one more comment before I go.
Yes, please.
It's gonna go on because. So far, the government hasn't complied with the court's order. And so it's going to go on. And there are brave plaintiffs amongst us who are going to carry forth and enforce the court's order. And we're going to be with them in that. So look for continued litigation for the people who want to fight. And we're gonna, I'm gonna go down swinging, like I said, to the day I die. Whether I might be bankrupt at that point. But we are this is about justice and doing the right thing, and we're going to continue to do that. So look for the ongoing cases, and I hope that you'll continue to cheer us on, and we'll be continuing to cheer you on too.
Definitely. Jamie?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jamie.
Christina, before you log off, are you still there?
I'm here.
Yeah, she's there.
I just want to publicly acknowledge, you've always said look for the helpers. You've always said look for the helpers in the hard times, and I firmly believe that. And when this all started, nobody would take a phone call or touch this with a 10-foot pole on the island because of the years that this has been going on. You took that phone call, you believed in these families, you believed what happened is wrong, and you believed what happened to Hawaii was wrong. And you stood before anybody else would stand. You came here not knowing much, but getting an earful and getting caught up to speed really fast, and you hit the ground running and you haven't stopped. So hearing you say that there's families still fighting, and that's why I turned to you asking what these families can do for advocacy and what the people of Oahu can do, because it's not just calling our congressman on Hawaii or on the island. We need to make everybody aware and continue to bang on the doors and pound, because that's how the true change is going to happen. And I just want to thank you for being that helper that answered the call when nobody else would, and standing for Oahu and standing for the military families that were affected, regardless of how many times people tried to tear you down or silence you, because you've gone through your own stuff, I'm sure, that none of us even know about. And you've stood with us time and time again. So I thank you for that.
Michelle?
I likewise just wanted to extend my mahalos and aloha to Christina and to everyone on the CRI, past, present, future, because why is why?
Yeah.
Why is why? And I'm so grateful for this historic case and this win. And I plan to be a part of this solution-oriented site till the day I die as well.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Okay, the other item on our agenda is.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say that regarding Lieutenant Commander Shannon Banks, while she was unable to testify in Christina's case, she is the star witness in Waiʻola Alliance.
Nice, right on.
So
Way
she'll
to
be
go.
able to tell her story in our case.
We are living proof of what it means to not give up. Good job. Okay, so the other item on our agenda that I wanted to call everybody's attention to is a report that I helped to pull together that I want to make sure everybody reads. And it's just to document the first 2 years of the CRI, what happened through the various meetings, and then recommendations. And the recommendations start on page, should have written that down, sorry, 23, I think. Recommendations for the Navy start on page 25, and none of these will be new to you, but basically it's, reading, how every meeting went from September 2023 to, the last meeting last month. We can see that the ground rules are being used as a weapon against CRI members to deny them participation, right? Mandy was denied her free speech rights and denied opportunity to participate as a full member of the CRI because of the ground rules, and that's not okay. We also identified that, they just, they don't have a trauma-informed approach to how they're handling this. That they, that they continue to use, to obscure data and make it difficult for us to understand what's going on. And so, there's a list of 8 recommendations that I hope that the Navy will consider taking on to be able to try to improve their standing in the community here. Anyway, if there's any comments or questions about the report, it is linked in the agenda and will be posted to the CRR website, so everyone can take a look at it. And I will be definitely passing it around to all the lawmakers in time for the hearings next week. So, yeah. Yes, Tara, go ahead.
Can this be forwarded to all the neighborhood boards?
Sure, that's an excellent idea. Yes. Promotion by Tara Rojas. We will be forwarding this to all neighborhood boards. Good job, good job, good job. Any other suggestions or ideas along those lines, please let me know. We're open to it. All right, and we have come to, if there are no other questions, double checking, comments, anything else?
One last comment. I
Yes,
did want
please.
to provide an update. So I think we talked about it last session when things got pretty contentious, but just so everyone's tracking, I have been writing Administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin's office, like every week. Every single week I've written to him directly about the ongoing issues, all the CRI requests that have gone unanswered. At the top of our request was was a trauma-informed facilitator. And while Lee Zeldin did not answer directly, he kicked it down to the EPA Region 9 director, and then all of a sudden we got an email from Amy the next day, and they delayed meeting with us because now they're getting a new facilitator. Details have not been provided if that person will be trauma informed or not, but we are reading between the lines that at least one of our requests will hopefully be met by the EPA, because everything that we have requested on behalf of the community at large has been denied so far. So please keep your fingers crossed on that, but we think we're moving in the right direction. It's just sad that it took continuing to write all the way to Washington, D.C. with the administrator of the EPA to have the Region 9 folks support us in the way that they're supposed to be.
Thank you very much, Mandy. All right. Second last call. Last call? All right, so it's come to that hour for public comment and testimony. If there's anybody who has anything that they would like to say, can raise your hand either online or in person. Yes, Robert, please come to the mic.
Hello, I'm Robert Huber, and I don't know if this is working or not.
Yeah, I think it's on.
It is. It's
Yeah.
good.
I have something to bring up. It's wasn't brought up here today about the reopening of the Navy drinking water shaft.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's on the agenda, but future dates, I'm sure it's going to be a big one. There is a new not public school, Navy school that's being built for primary up on Red Hill. It's ginormous. It's huge. Right at the crux of this whole, fiasco that we're dealing with. And my question is, why would they allow from the state level and the city to be built or opened prior to the water being tested? And I think that's something that we should address. And if it's not being addressed, I think that court action with a cease and desist order is in order. And also, may I add, everybody out there, whether they're civilian or Navy, and please forgive me for all the lawyers who already know this and everybody else, but may I remind you, and even I forget at times, on all email correspondence to whether it be the EPA or to any federal office, to make sure at the end of the letter you ask for a return receipt acknowledgement of this email. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see there's a hand online. Chris, are you ready?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, hello. This is Chris. And
Hi.
And thank you for having me. I was just wondering if there's been any movement or discussion, and this may not be CRI, but you may have your hands in any other community activities. So I'm curious about any state water testing on island, like pursuing that, keep pushing that issue, so there's more timely health standards for everybody to get results of what's going on, so they know what to do and make decisions for their home. So is there any private buildings that may be going on? Is there state funded, or is there discussion about any maybe ballot measures for a bond so that people just build it themselves?
Hello. There, Department of Health in the past has tested water due to, you have to phrase it a certain way. It's on their website. It's like, I forgot what the wording is, and I don't want to misquote Department of Health. No, Board of Water Supply, I'm sorry. Board of Water Supply, go back. Board of Water Supply could test the water under a specific standard. Like if you're worried about runoff or a potential hazard or something in your area broke, they can come out and test your water. On the other hand, there's UH Manoa. UH Manoa has this guy, I don't want to say his name in public, but I can give you his number. It's a guy at UH that comes over to your house and tests the water for fluorescence and other chemicals. And then they put it on their massive UH website, and you can look at the analytes yourself. And that's who I've been using for the past 4 years. Like, I make up something saying, hey, I'm getting symptoms again. Come, UH, come, test my water for free. And then they come, and then I feel better for the rest of the year that they've tested my water, third party. But I wish there was a public way that we could find that was open to everyone. UH is kind of like, call me only if you need me. It's not open for everyone. Because they're very short-staffed. It's not federally funded. It's just funded through this little grant that UH Manoa has. But we should have a way of testing, and that's what I think we've been trying to do at the legislative sessions, was to have Department of Health and Board of Water Supply come together to offer the public free water testing just because. Like, we shouldn't have to have a reason. The reason is because I want safe, clean water. That should be the only reason. Still working on it, but Board of Water and UH Manoa are the two things that are testing right now.
Hey,
Yeah,
Chris,
Melody, go ahead.
it's Mandy. I would suggest, since you're coming on board, that we've done like joint CRI letters to our congressional delegation before. I would suggest this next cycle that you guys put like maybe 5 questions, that being one of them, what you're asking right now. Funding. I would write the Hawaii congressional delegation and say, hey, appropriations, Ed Case, remember all that money you and Schatz got for this problem set? Where's it all, like, what all is that money being spent on? And can we use it, a small portion of it, for testing? Would be my recommendation.
That's an
I would
excellent
think
suggestion. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that unless there was capital improvements allowed as an allowable cost in what was received, it has to be separate and new funding. New lab on island. And so I'm always pushing for the people's voice. So possibly ballot measures that push the state and force their hand to build something.
That's what I was going to say too. What is necessary to finally have testing center on island?
Yeah. Okay. So Melody and then Michelle.
Yeah, we don't have referendums. I don't know if that would, I'm not saying
Yeah, we don't
it
have
like-
ballot measures for the
Yeah,
state. Yes,
so
it's true.
it has to go through the legislature. And every year, the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party puts in a bill for that. And the best that always happens, because we have to direct a agency, and so the bill is a direct ask, I guess, of the Department of Health to make that request. And so the bill always passes, but it is always subject to the Department of Health asking the federal government to fund, and that's where the bill doesn't go further than that. But yeah, we always ask, because it's quite expensive endeavor to get a EPA certified lab. I think it's upwards around 200 million to get that, because the way the Department of Health wants it, it has to be built a whole new big building out in Pearl City, is what they're saying that they would like to do, versus just expanding the building that they already have and updating the equipment that they already have. They want to build a whole new Cadillac version of the EPA certified lab.
Okay.
So we just try every year.
Thank you for your efforts. Okay, Michelle, online.
Hi. So as we recall, perhaps from our April meeting with the Navy and EPA and Department of Health, this issue was brought up of the EPA certified lab. The question I recall was why didn't the Department of Health accept the Navy's offer of funding for the building of said EPA certified lab? The answer that the Department of Health gave us at that time was that it did not include ongoing maintenance funding. So at the time, I suggested, well, would not this lab, if we had it, serve the entire Indo-Pacific region. Could we not then get funding from the entire Indo-Pacific region? The chickens around here agree. So everyone in that room, as I recall, seemed to think that that was a very good idea, and that was caught on camera. And I encourage us to go review that footage because it seems there was a consensus that that was a good idea.
Yes, I confirm. I remember. I recall that as well. You're right.
Yeah. So if we write, I mean, it seemed like everyone was on the same page, and that it could be possible to do this, and that would be a win for everyone. So let's try to see how we can make that happen.
Let's see what we can do to make that happen. Yes, excellent suggestion. Any other comments or reactions on that point? I just want to add that I think that, you know, Hawaii should be the world's leader in water management. I mean, it's in Hawaii's genes, right? Before Western contact, Hawaiians were managing and moving water around like experts. It was amazing. And they always ensured that everybody had enough water. There was never the situation where people were drinking, consuming polluted water or not having enough water. And I think we need to like pull forward from that tradition, that history, and apply it, in a high-tech way going forward. And there are communities all around the world, because the military is a plague on the planet. They are communities all around the world who are dealing with contaminated water who could benefit from filtering technologies and management technologies that we could develop here and share. That would be beautiful. Okay, if there are no other comments on this, then we can go to Susan. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, were you going to go on that one agenda item that we haven't gone on? The Meredith?
Oh, Meredith's case? Yeah, sorry, I guess, if you want to talk to it, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I do want to talk to it, and one of my first thoughts is that the information was right in front of our eyes. It was public information about the AFFF line. That's the retention line that received the May 6th transfer to that line that eventually on November 21st it burst and it ended up in the water supply. And when I testified at the Board of Education, I said, it would be a public thought that because it ran for 30 hours, that there would not be anything in the AFFF line. It would have just all gone up. That's not what happened, okay? Somewhere along the way, it got plugged, and the EPA did a inspection in March 7th and 8th of 2024, in which they did see that there was fuel still in that line. Numerous requests, even before that date, were provided to our favorite friend, Carnegie, Navy, Navy personnel, to collect 4 samples from 8 of the segments to sample, because the thoughts were that that would be the closest characterization of the fuel as it came out in November 21st, because it had been stored there. That's all I'm going to say about this now, because there's too much. But just to know that they have found Meredith's lawyers, Meredith not Chris Anton, Ariana Wyatt, somehow whatever they were doing, which is what I was doing, is searching for AFFF retention line. And boom, all of this stuff is just out of the woodwork.
But could you connect the dots for people? So having a sample of fuel as it was released, how does that help us? Why is that so important?
You mean that's trapped in the AFFF line,
like
that they've already drained?
Yeah, help people connect the dots about why,
Why is it important? What's important is to know that, A, they're not disclosing everything at the time that it would have been of help to people that were getting sick, okay? Second of all, the EPA actively is requesting for these samples because it's the next best thing that they think, because we didn't get any samples from the November 21st spill. So they think it's the next best thing, so they wanted to be able to characterize it. However, a contractor from ACOM, which I know I put it right here. Did I put it here? We know that the samples from the original spill may not have been taken, but we also know that the community has long alleged the presence of antifreeze. So they're actually, the EPA was actually trying to get this AFFF, okay? Guy Frierson, a contractor from ACOM, as I quote, "We will not be collecting sample directly from the AFFF retention line as requested in the EPA correspondence." So this is like the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more, but you can tell how there are contractors, there are civilians, and you ask, why would they not disclose? And it has to do with jobs, retirement, money. Usually you just follow the path. Did I connect it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, for me, the part of the problem was the military saying, oh, we don't know what contaminants are in the environment or in the water, and so we don't know what tests to run to be able to say what's there, right? But they had an opportunity to know what the exact contaminants were in the water if they had this best sample, as it's referred to by the EPA, and the fact that the Navy is just disregarding the directions from the EPA in terms of what to do with these samples is outrageous to me. How is this not anarchy? Sorry, on my soapbox. Okay, other comments or questions around what Susie presented? All right, thank you as always. Any other questions online? Go ahead, Tara.
I have a follow-up question to what you had presented earlier about that new elementary school. So my one question was, how do you find out about that and other things that they're planning to build, and what would be like the next steps, because it's going to be children?
Mm-hmm.
If you have any response. I think you have to go to the mic though.
I think that was the reason why I brought it up, and maybe I wasn't clear or made that clear, that prevention is the whole idea here. Mm-hmm. Especially with anything new, anywhere on this island. Water, I don't care if it's west side, east side, south side, or North Shore. We should be testing for water before we even allow anything to be built, especially into big developments. I mean, they're planning stuff on the North Shore that's making me sick even thinking about it. And I'm thinking, well, what's next? What's next? What are we going to allow next on this island to happen if we don't prevent it now in 2025? And that's my major concern. And yes, of course, the children are the number one. That's our Keikio Aina Hawaii. That's the future of Hawaii. When we're all dead and gone here on this panel, those children are going to be going to the water faucets. There might not be public water faucets out there where they can trust going up and drinking from a water spigot.
Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering, is there a place where you find like the information, like for example, what are their projects coming up, just on their website?
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't think it's at that level yet. I think the questions need to be asked at the Navy level, because that's in the Navy area, but you go up there and you take a drive up there and see it, and I'm like appalled. The thing is enormous. There's no other school I've seen that big being built, You know, other than on Schofield, that thing's huge too. Well, there you go, you know, so.
A quick question, what phase of construction are they?
They're finishing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're finishing. They're finishing fast. They're building
and where
fast.
is it?
Pardon me?
Where is it?
Literally on the top of Red Hill. You know, when you're going west on H1, and you look and you say, oh, there's Red Hill, there it is, to our right. It's at the very peak, right up by one of the tanks up there. And so, holding tanks. And it's appalling to me that they would even be starting something like this, considering what we've just gone through.
Yeah.
Years here. But I really think there's a starting point in everything that we need to do to be able to look at everything and bring it up to our legislation, to our legislators, and to address these things in bills and make sure that with the city level, you know, that we have the DPP at the helm of this thing, working with the Department of Water, as well as, you know, our planners, and prevent anything from happening. The children, I mean, they're innocent. We're not. We have the knowledge to be able to do something. So I'm really hoping that maybe something could be started from this, you know. The Navy needs to be a little bit more, I think, in communication with what's going on here in a larger spectrum, not just based upon what we know in Pearl Harbor, what we know in Halava Shaft, what we know. They need to be in touch with us as an island and tell us what's going on. And they have a responsibility to the people of Oahu. Yeah.
Susan?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, the Navy is the one pushing to get those shafts open again. And that's interesting because now that they have this big school, that's probably part of the reason. But also they're saying they don't have any redundancy in, they call it their water system. And so it seems like, you know, normally you would take, I think it's called the precautionary approach, where,
Absolutely.
you know, if you don't know, you don't assume it's okay. We still don't know where that plume is. And so why would you open, you know, up these shafts not knowing, and not knowing if the water, you know, the plume or the pollutants would move into the Board of Water Supply water as well. But they just seemed bound and determined to open that up and kind of wash their hands of the whole thing and say, see, everything's fine.
Well, I think that's the reason why that school's built. Absolutely perfectly put. Because they figure, well, if we build the school, it'll show that everything's perfectly fine.
There you go.
And the community and all the people and the Navy wives figure, oh, this is wonderful. Let's move into Navy housing because we have this great brand new school, and that's what I want for Charlie and you know, Sue Ann, and this is why we moved here to Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, little did they know that taking showers and being able to drink water and boil water would still have contaminants in it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Jamie has her hand up online.
Yeah, speaking of the water and testing, and hearing about this school is quite alarming, especially considering my children went to school on Hickam and got rather ill. It's scary. Have we heard more on the red tracer dye or any results coming from
No,
that?
we don't know. The dye is out there someplace and hasn't surfaced yet. So, it's
Which is a reason to not reopen the shaft because they don't know.
yeah, they don't
They
know,
don't know
right?
where it's at, and they don't know where it's going. And as a team, with them reopening, is there any realm for calling for more advocacy for them to do more testing than what they're doing? You know, they try to put red tracer dye out there as a way to calm everybody's fears and everything's okay, and we've had skewed results. One of the things that they've come back and said, there's been conflicting reports from the Navy versus Board of Water Supply. This is why it's important for as many families to continue to get involved and advocate and be involved, not just with the CRI, but attending any of these meetings that they can. including NASM and all the others that we have going on. So, thank you.
Yes, there is plenty of opportunity for advocacy around the testing. The shafts have not been reopened. The Department of Health is the decision maker about whether to allow the shafts to be reopened. The Department of Health has outlined some, requirement steps for the Navy to demonstrate that the water source is safe. And I think it's on us, as it always is, to follow up, right? We know that we can't trust the Navy to give us good information. And so, just thinking about some of the other comments that were made about trying to test the water and establish the EPA lab, and maybe there's room here for some citizen science until we can get the EPA lab set up. Are there other ways in which the community can pool its resources and lean on the experts for guidance, but engage in our own sample collections and testing to be able to provide maybe a little more of a wholer picture than what I think the Navy would present. Yeah, so good point.
I like that.
Other comments or questions?
Marty, quick question. So have you been looking at the exact information from the Department of Health? Do they have like a timeline? I know you said they have to meet the stipulations, but there's so many things going on, I haven't.
Yeah, there are so many things going on. No, I have not actually. So the last time we actually talked to the Department of Health, the Navy hadn't actually started the process of sampling the water and providing test results. So that would be a great topic for maybe the next CRI meeting. We can invite the Department of Health staff to come and give us an update on the reopening of the shaft, and we can ask the University of Hawaii folks to come and tell us about the dye tracer study. These are excellent things that the CRI could talk about in the future. It's a really, I think, if we don't talk about it, nobody talks about it, right? And we can't let this get forgotten. So.
And I think I want to add in, I think I read comments about even what is in the dye and can they use a more natural type of dye in addition to where is the dye?
Yeah. I mean, the dye itself, I think, is fairly harmless, but the fact that they lost it is very concerning. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So since we're in the process of following up on other things and time is allowing it, I thought we could some of the other open loops that we've been trying to chase down. One of those is the information that's given to new residents, military dependents, when they arrive and move into military housing. How are they informed about the status of the Red Hill catastrophe? And Mai, you have some insight?
I do. So remember that last meeting we had with the Navy? They're all, oh yeah, this is the Admiral talking.
That's exactly what he looks like, and totally sounds like that, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We gave housing an addendum, and we gave them this several-page addendum where they can get told where to get your water tested, and we told them about Red Hill, and it's attached to every new residence's handbook. And I said, oh, let me go ask, because they think it's happening. So we did some reconnaissance. I would knock on my neighbor's doors and I asked them, hey, let me see that handbook that Ohana Hunt. So I can only speak for my community. My community on record, because I know they're listening, Ohana Hunt military communities. There are multiple privately privatized Navy housings. There's Hickam. Well, Hickam's Air Force, but they still are on the waterline. Then there's Island Palms, and then there's Ohana Hunt. Ohana Hunt is, I think, 90% sure, the biggest one. They have like 15 properties all over this part. So Ohana Hunt has on their website the handbook. I checked the handbook because I asked, how can I find this cool addendum? And the housing manager said, it's online. Sent me the link. I looked online, I'm like, there's no addendum on here. And I specifically asked, so I have this email thread between me and the guy for Ohana Hunt. And again, he referred me to the handbook that they had online. And I said clearly in my email, the Navy said on record that they had this 2 to 3 page addendum attached to the handbook talking about specifically about Red Hill, that if you have concerns about your water, here it is. And again, he said, this is all we have. Oh, and by the way, here's like the water quality testing and here's all this stuff. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a specific addendum attached to the handbook. So what I have and what all my neighbors agree is that they were not told about Red Hill upon moving in. They only found out about it when I opened my mouth and knocked on the door and be like, hey, you're new to the neighborhood, you're pregnant, right? Go get your water tested. And they're like, what do you mean Red Hill? Like housing never told them. So it is still just lies. The Navy is still lying to us, saying that they're taking care of the people moving into the housing, and they're not. I don't know how to, I don't know, I'm trying to find out. So then there's this guy, the NAFAC, Navy Facilities guy, Captain Smith, who's in charge. I'm trying to find out how to contact him and tell them that this is going on. So stay tuned.
But needless to say, the information that we got from the Navy the last time we met with them did not pan out. I'll add that to my report.
So why? Can you make sure to include that thread
Yeah.
in and of itself to the Department of Health as like number one reason why do not trust the Navy to even check off, the requirements if they can't even do that simple thing about trusting the word, okay, that their own new people moving in, that they don't even know anything about it. So right there, that's proof that there's no trust.
And that speaks to also why it's so valuable for, the various community groups to be going to each of these communities and passing out water and information and connecting with people. So we have to keep doing that. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for doing that.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, good job. We need to hold them accountable. I love it. Okay, if we have, Tara,
Is
you have
that
something?
number 3, the tank cleanup? Did we go over that?
Status of tank cleanup is basically they are midway. Is a quick summary of the tank cleanup status. So they have emptied all of the fuel. They have removed the sludge from a few of the tanks. They are off-gassing the next set of tanks that they're going to be scooping the sludge out of. So it takes time. They just let that air out, which is concerning, right? Which is part of the reason why we had air quality monitors installed to be able to monitor that off-gassing. And then they'll start with the next tranche of tanks, which they do 3 at a time. So yeah, they're about halfway. All right.
Oh, Jamie has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Jamie, and then Chris. Thank you.
With the tanks and the degassing, I was going to ask this earlier, but I didn't want to get down a rabbit hole before we addressed it. With, as you mentioned, the vapor monitoring, and we know that the vapors are the most harmful to people. How accountable are we holding them with releasing the vapor testing result? I know they say they put it on their website, and I know that they're not really open to talking about it. But if we think back to the beginning of when all this happened, they were offering free air sampling, or not free, but air sampling to everybody's homes in their lives. As they're proceeding forward, if families are noticing an uptick in symptoms and not just immediately attributing it to the fog or allergies, should we be calling more for vapor testing or results besides their air quality monitoring systems?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Unfortunately, Susie Bucola Davis already left, so but she's been the one who's been most paying attention to the Safe Waters website, and she was working on some of the air quality monitoring data. But yeah, that's an open loop that we should follow up on for sure, is figuring out, how frequent are they posting this information? How frequently are they collecting it and then posting it to make it public? And then what is it actually telling us? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When is their next off-gassing? Do you know?
I think it's on. Yeah, I don't know exactly. Like, it sounds to me like it's just like passive off-gassing. Like they pop open the cork on the top of the tank and they just let it air out. So I don't think there's specific days that they're doing it and then not doing it. It's just sort of waiting for the internal air composition to be enough that people can walk in there and start shoveling the sludge out.
Should we start asking them for their schedule? I mean, they know when they're going in and cleaning those tanks.
Yeah, a schedule would be excellent, yes. And that's actually when we did ask for that in part of our suite of 100 plus, 200 plus questions, yeah. How much are we up to? Yeah.
Like 300, last I heard.
Yeah, last I heard is 300, yeah.
And they haven't answered any
Yeah.
since, more than a year.
Yeah. But
Well,
doesn't
that
mean
was
we
fun.
shouldn't keep asking. And, like the House hearing on Thursday is a perfect opportunity. There's and the public meeting on Wednesday is an opportunity, and we should be raising all of these questions there. And yeah, can't let them up. Yep.
Gotcha.
Chris, you have your hand up?
There we go. My apologies.
No problem.
I'd moved my screen a little over and I couldn't get over to that little audio, but educate me. Why are they allowed to go with the cleaning as the option and not filling those and actually closing the facility? So are we still able to do any amendments with their closure plan that the state gives that like kind of approval? Is there still wiggle room where we keep questioning why they did that whole survey and it found that this was not the way anybody wanted to go? How did this end up being the way that they're going? And why is the word clean even in cleaning even in the path? That seems very expensively stupid way to go unless they're going to reuse the tanks, which I thought that was supposed to be shut down. So if you could just educate me a little bit on how that's going, and is there any opening for us to keep questioning why they're even doing this? Why wouldn't they just fill it with inert material?
Yeah, I don't think a decision has been officially made about the future of the tanks. I did see the Navy trying to socialize the idea, normalize the idea of reusing the tanks, and my sense was that was, like you said, Chris, thoroughly shut down, and so now we're in the process of the Navy trying to make a case for what they're going to do next with the tanks. I don't know if you recall, but Admiral Mark Williams was talking about how, the tanks are going to, last hundreds of years, and, will be long gone before they start to, collapse or fold in and things like that, which just goes to show what a short attention span he has. I do think that it is important for us to clean the tanks because we don't want any of the residual stuff that is in there to further contaminate the environment. And so we have to clean it out. They have to clean it out. From there, whether they actually use it again for something else is a separate question. But we can't leave all of those contaminants there, perched above the water supply. We'll see no end to the contamination if we just let it continue to slowly leak out.
Contamination of the bottom of a tank collapsing into the aquifer, right, and having sludge.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, and if I were in charge, I think the Hawaii should capture carbon from the sky in order to save us from climate change, and then put all of that slurry into the tanks and fill them up to where they don't collapse in the future. That would be an ideal use, in my opinion, of these tanks. But unfortunately, I'm not in charge. So I do think that it's important for the public to continue to engage on the question of the future of the tanks. I do think we want them to be filled with some inert material to keep them from collapsing some distant day in the future. Yeah, I don't know. That's my take. You guys have any other comments or opinions about the tank reuse or the off-gassing cleaning?
Yes, just most definitely no reuse, none at all.
Yeah,
no reuse.
And I think it's good that they are making an effort to remove the pipes as much as possible, which I think that is a key thing, right? The pipes in particular were very challenging because a lot of them you can't see because they're buried, and they had no other lining or anything like that. So the pipes really do have a lot of a higher risk of leaking, I think, than the tanks themselves. So the fact that they're removing them is a good thing. Even though they're making an effort to remove a lot of the pipes, there's going to be a bunch that's left because they can't, for whatever reason, get it out. It's, not cost effective for them. So they'll be filling it with a foam that is supposed to, take up the space inside the pipe itself, and is supposed to absorb any other residual fuel that might be left in the pipes. I'm not super stoked on this foam, but I don't have a better option for us to employ. So that's what's happening.
Okay, so they're really in a cleanup, it's part of cleanup, but not actually closure of facility in full stage.
Yeah, we're not at closure stage remotely yet. Yeah, it's going to be a while. Michelle, you have your hand up?
Hi. Okay. So, on the many questions that we have tonight, I do another thing I recall from our meeting last April, was, I had asked, oh, can we submit these 300 questions to their Let's Talk Red Hill podcast that the Navy produces on YouTube? And they were said, no, you can't just give it to them that way. There's like another specific way that they will only accept those questions. So that just reminded me of what's wrong with the spreadsheet with a bunch of questions? Now they only need it delivered in a specific way. Okay. So let's start submitting those questions to the Let's Talk Red Hill podcast.
Yeah, let's try and make that podcast useful.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at 6:45, and I feel like we have talked about everything that we know. Oh, we've got one more comment from the audience here.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
CRI folks, I'm Wayne Tanaka with the Circle of Hawaii. Just first, I want to thank you again so much for all that you've done over the last 2 years. I mean, your tenacity and your dedication and your courage, right, to try and hold the Navy accountable and keep the community engaged and informed. This report is just a tip of the iceberg. It's scratching the surface of all that you've accomplished in the last 2 years. So just mahalo nui to all of you, especially those who've stuck it out for the last 2 years and who are now terming out. As you know, and as today's meeting and many of your other meetings have demonstrated, we are in a long-term campaign, right? Like our aquifer is still contaminated. We still don't even know where this plume is. People are still sick, and so, and at the same time, I think the broader community may be losing sight of the fact that we need to stay engaged. We can't repeat the mistakes that we've collectively made in deferring to the Navy's assurances and even the regulators, right? And so to kind of help remind and institutionalize that need, and I've spammed you all several times on this already, but for folks who aren't on your email list, we are hosting a Pledge to Our Why, Pledge to Our Keiki launch event on Monday at Honolulu Hale at 2:30 p.m. We'll have speakers including Ernie Lau with the Board of Water Supply, Senator Jarrett Kehoe-Kalole, who is with the Red Hill Y Initiative, City Council Chair Tommy Waters, as well as the CRI Chair Marty Townsend giving remarks. And we'll also have a big pledge board. So anyone there, speakers as well as attendees, can sign their name on this big board and take the pledge, right, and make that commitment to always remember that we all share this generational kuleana to protect our wai and to heal our aquifer. And so I'd like to invite all of you to attend if you can. I know it's Monday, so people have jobs and school and so forth, but I think a really strong showing from the community, big cross-section, multi-generational, right? We'll have kupuna, we'll have keiki there, we'll have keiki art as part of the Tainted Waters Art Contest that a high school student helped organize this summer. And so it should be a pretty powerful moment, and just absolutely want to invite you and invite everyone who is tuning in and who watches the recording to come down and share space with us all.
Wayne, why did you choose Monday?
So Monday is the 29th of September. It's actually the day after the 10-year anniversary of the 2015 Red Hill Administrative Order on Consent. Right, and as you probably know, this was an agreement that was entered into between the Navy and the EPA and the Hawaii Department of Health that essentially that was in response to the 2014 reported spill of 27,000 gallons from the Red Hill Fuel Facility. And unfortunately, as many folks already were able to see, including Marty, including a number of state senators and legislators, and even Ernie Lau, this document ultimately served to keep the Red Hill facility operating. They actually envisioned the facility to continue operating for another 30 years, right? So it would have, and a number of commitments in that administrative order and consent have not been fulfilled, including the groundwater flow and contaminant feed and transport model. That's still missing.
Which is why we don't know where the plume is.
Right, exactly. Right. And essentially it was used, you can look at all of the press releases from the Navy during these last 10 years, and like over and over again, they point to the AOC and say, we're working with the regulators, so you have nothing to worry about, right? And so it's, so to hold it on the 10-year anniversary or the day after also kind of reflects on, it emphasizes why it's on all of us, right? We can't just trust the assurances of people in Washington, D.C. that they're going to keep us safe, because it's our why, it's our future, it's our children. And there's a question about what time, so it'll be at 2:30 p.m. at Honolulu Hale. So yeah, please come by if you can.
And then Wayne, mahalo nui for that. And that's another reason to give to the Department of Health of why there's no reopening this.
Yeah, yep, another reason, yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay! Okay, this may be the first ever time we did not run out of things, run out of time or all the things we wanted to talk about. We actually covered everything on the agenda. Yeah, I finally figured out how to run a meeting. Thank you very much. It happens to be my last one, but that's all right. All right, thank you all very much for joining us. Hopefully our next meeting will be on October 24th. And if you're interested in following along with the CRI more, please email us at redhillcri@gmail.com to be added to our email list. All right, thank you very much. And thank you very much to Olelo and the Olelo volunteers for helping us to pull off this show. Thank you very much. Aloha.